What's up, band heads? Happy Labor Day weekend. The season has officially begun. And I'll tell you, all weekend I've just been listening to different clips of bands. Oh man, I think that everybody is glad to be back on the field, making it a season that will be closer to 2019 than any other season. And so, yeah, band is back and I am loving it. So, this week I am talking to my friend Darrell Spires. Now, I just really love hearing stories from people who marched in different eras than I did. And Darrell, he marched in the late 70s, early 80s, I believe. He is a graduate of Tuskegee University. And I wanted to make sure that Tuskegee was represented as well on this podcast because it's important for me to shine a light on people from all conferences, all size bands, all different kinds of programs. And so, yeah, he has a really interesting story. He almost was not in the band, but I will let you hear it for yourself and enjoy. So here is my talk with Darrell Spires. All right, so this week I am with Darrell Spires, who marched for Tuskegee University. And Darrell and I have been friends for decades. I can literally say decades now. And yeah, I'm just really excited to get his story. I should have asked you to be on this podcast even earlier because I know you love your school. I will say that. You definitely love your school and you love your band. And yeah, yeah. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you. It's an honor to be on your podcast. And by the way, this is my first podcast, so I feel extremely honored and privileged to be here.
Oh, yay. I'm glad I could be your first one. Okay, so let's get into your band story. So let's start off. Can you tell me your hometown?
Yeah, actually, my hometown is a small town about 90 miles south of Tallahassee in Florida called Apalachicola. That's where I was born. And when I was 5, I moved to Central Florida to a town called Winter Haven. So I grew up in Winter Haven, marched in junior high school band there, played in elementary school band. And so yeah, that's where I grew up. Winter Haven is in the middle of Florida, about halfway between Tampa and Orlando.
Oh, okay. So you know what? I don't think all this time that I knew you were from Florida, but you know what? Maybe I did. It doesn't matter. Anyway, about did you grow up in a musical family?
Yes, I did. Actually, I grew up in a very musical family. My 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 oldest first cousin was a music major from FAMU. He taught music in Minneapolis for many years and came back. He was always a church musician. His sister was actually my cousin Annette was my choir director, and she played for our church from the time she was 14 to the time she was 62. My mom sang in the choir, so yes, I grew up in a musical family.
Okay. And what
Yeah.
got you started into music? You said you played in elementary school, right?
Yes, yes. So when they came around for sixth grade band, um, they were demonstrating instruments, and the saxophone made a two-note sound, dun, and I heard those two notes, and I said, "That's my instrument right there."
Wow. So your
Yeah, two
family was
notes.
happy.
Hmm.
Your family was happy that you picked up an instrument, I'm assuming, since they were already musicians themselves.
My daddy said, "Boy, why did you have to pick the most expensive instrument in the band?" So no, so no, he was not happy. He was not happy to buy my plastic Bundy alto saxophone.
Yeah, and then had to keep buying reeds and
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
So let's see. So you started in sixth grade. So how was your middle school band? Like, what was that experience
My,
like?
it was really great because my band director then was Mr. Neal, and when our schools had integrated, we had a very good black high school, Jewett High School, a Marching Wolverines band. Mr. Neal was a Bethune-Cookman graduate, and so he was my first band director, and he instilled in us a lot of musical qualities, a lot of seriousness about band, even though he was, he was teaching, not instead of teaching high school, he was teaching sixth and seventh grade. And so between him and my chorus teacher in elementary school, at the they really instilled in me a love of music. And so, they were the last of, I was fortunate to have two of my great black teachers teach me music. And so they were very supportive. They let us be leaders. It was a very, very good experience. My
Good,
junior high
good.
school, my junior high school was a very good experience.
So I'm assuming the first college band you really remember seeing is FAMU, or was it maybe Bethune-Cookman?
Can you hear me, Christy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So yeah, that was. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my junior high school band. I tried out for drum major there. I felt like I could be all that I could be in junior high school band. It was fun. We marched in parades. It was fun. Yeah.
Okay. So it was FAMU or Bethune-Cookman the first like HBCU band you remember seeing?
They were the only HBCU bands I'd ever seen. We would go to the Florida Classic every year. My sisters went to FAMU. Me and my brother went to Tuskegee, and my mom went to Cookman. So, but every year when the Florida Classic was in Tampa, we would go to the game, and it was always a lot of family trash talking, because my mom went to Cookman. So I was used to seeing the marching men of Cookman and the marching 100 every Thanksgiving. So that was just a part of what we did over the Thanksgiving holiday as a family.
Okay, okay. And so now you get
Yeah.
to high school. What was your high school experience like in the band?
My high school experience was very mixed. Um, I mentioned I went to the area of Florida that I grew up in doesn't have that many African Americans in it. So we were about 10%, a little over 10, maybe 10, 15%. And so everything at our high school was very political, in our band was very political. We had a large, very award winning core style band. Our band director was, um, was a very good band director, but he did not respect HBCU bands
Oh
at all.
no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was very dismissive of show style bands.
That's unfortunate. Wow.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you go ahead and go against the grain and end up, attending a HBCU, although it sounds like it's not against the grain in your family if your mom's a graduate and sister.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Charlotte, the other young lady that I was in the saxophone section with, she marched in the 100. We put one of our drummers marched in the 100. We weren't stopped by him. We
Mhm.
we know we knew what we liked. All I know is that one football playoffs, we came up against Orlando Jones, and Orlando Jones is like a little marching 100. And all I can say is after they went on the field, all us black folks in our little band, we looking at each other. We do not want to take this corny little mess on the field here.
Mm.
They lit us up. And he wouldn't even show their performance. We always looked at our performance, the other band's performance, and our band's performance, and we would critique our band's performance the next Monday morning. But he wouldn't even show Orlando Jones. He says we're not going to watch that.
Wow. Yeah, he was a
Yeah,
hater
yeah.
for
So
real.
for real, for real, for real. He's from your state. Remember, he went to Bob Jones University. So
Wait a minute. Okay, so first of all, I
mm.
live in North Carolina, but I'm
Okay,
a Virginia
I know,
girl.
I know you're a Virginia girl. I know, I know,
But Bob
I
Jones
know,
is in
I
South
know.
Carolina.
Oh, well, somewhere down there, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But he was,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. He's an excellent band director, though. We're still friends now. We're friends on Facebook, and from time to time, I'll send him an HBU clip of the Legion or something, and he never comments on it. So, you know, you
Wow.
know,
Some
yeah, yeah.
people are never
I
learn.
thought he would like passing review, but no comment on it.
Wow, he didn't
So
even like pass a review.
I
Dang.
know, I know, I know, I know. I mean, yeah. So So I thought that would be right up his. But he's a big Florida State fan. He loves the Marching Chiefs.
Well, little does he know that he's got like
Mm-hmm.
HBCUs
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
arranging all up in Florida
Mm-hmm.
State's program. But anyway, I
Mm-hmm.
digress.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. I should introduce him to Mr. Shaw and say, "Here's where your Florida State music comes from. The
Yeah,
music that you like so
exactly.
much."
So you know Warren
Yes.
Shaw does that. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Tuskegee. So what made you want to go to Tuskegee?
Interesting story. I was all set to go to University of Florida, and as an engineering major, they says, "Oh, well, you don't have time for band." And so I was kind of buying into that. But I went to Tuskegee for a summer pre-engineering program, and just providentially decided to stay. I liked my friends, and we had gotten into some trouble at Tuskegee in the summer, and it kind of bonded me and my friends together. It's good trouble, but but we all decided to come back, and I had no intention of marching in band there, but thankfully I brought my saxophone, and when I saw the first game, I'm like, wow, this is something way different than I'm used to. Because back then there's no tape, there's
Mm-hmm.
no internet, you just didn't see other bands unless you were actually on campus or saw them in a parade or something. So when I saw Tuskegee, it was a totally different style than I was used to, and I was for all of that. And so that Monday morning, I went down to the band cottage that Monday afternoon and talked to Mr. Duncan. And Tuskegee's such a small band. I wouldn't have been able to do this anywhere else. I wouldn't have been able to do this at FAMU or Cookman. But he allowed me to work hard to make the band. And
So let me make
the
sure I
rest is
have this
history.
straight. You had never seen Tuskegee's band until you came there as a student, and then
Yes,
you went to a game and was like,
yes,
and saw them, and you were like, I want to be a part of this. And then that
yes,
Monday, you went to Mr.
yes.
Duncan.
That is correct. No band camp, no band camp, no nothing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So what was
yeah.
it easy for you to get like, I mean, I know it's a smaller band, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you had an easy adjustment, or was it? How was your adjustment coming in kind of missing that first camp?
Well, I'm coming from core style. Plus, I'm coming from core style. So
True.
I'm coming from a completely different style. And I had to work for the first time in my life, Chrissy. I had to work really hard. But I can say that my mentors in my section, my section leader, Greg Williams, or my squad leader, Iris Dixon Meadows, those folks, they were tough, but they really worked with me. Greg told me he would come to my room and work with me as much as I wanted to work after band practice, and he taught me, all the facings, all the horn swings. He taught me that in my room and he's trying to get in vet school too, so he's and that's all grade based, but he was willing, to work with me as much as I wanted to work, and I had to work at it. And it probably took me I probably didn't get on the field till the sixth or seventh game of the season. I think I only marched like maybe 3 games that season. I think it was A&M. I think we played either Morris Brown. I think we played Morris Brown, and then we played in the Turkey Day Classic. So I think I only marched 3 games. It took me most of the season to catch up.
Okay. Okay. This
Yeah,
is this is this is unique. I'm glad you're
it's
doing this.
very yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. I want to be able to show these different perspectives of folks that march. So,
Hmm.
you were an engineering major, and I'll tell you, as somebody else, because we have some similarities. Like, I was an engineering major too. I came from a core style high school band, but I remember my advisor my freshman year telling me something negative like, "Oh, you're going to march in the band, like, maybe you should do this and be an engineering major." And I remember him
Hmm.
saying something to that effect. So my question for
Hmm.
you, of course, and I obviously did it, but I mean, my question for you is, was Tuskegee supportive in you being an engineering student and marching?
Well, I don't think that information came as much from Tuskegee as it did from University of Florida, where I was originally going. And so I think it was just a thing from the day of engineering's going to be so hard. But ironically, I made my best grades during marching season. I was a more focused student during marching season than I was when I was on my own in the spring. So it didn't turn out that way. And there were a ton of engineers in our band. I mean, so it wasn't like I was the only one. In my saxophone section alone, I can count one, two, three, four very successful engineers. One's a vice president of Alabama Power, one's a CEO of his own company now, and that was guys that we had a lot of veterinary majors, we had a lot of nurses and occupational therapists, because we don't have a music major, so our band is made up completely of volunteers, as it were. So
Right,
there's
right.
no core. There were no core of musicians there. It was an all volunteer band. So yeah.
Right, right. I'm surprised at this point. Don't do they have a music program now? I mean, a music major?
Yes, 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 yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. It's a very nascent music major. It's only started a few years ago when it was as John Lennard took over. About the
Mm-hmm.
year that John took over, Mr. Duncan was finally able to get a music program but it's probably very few students. And by the
Right.
way, too, nobody got a band scholarship back in those days. The best they could do was a third of tuition for you, and it's probably very much the same way. And that's why we're totally small, because the school has not invested the resources in the band until recently.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because it sounds like your experience marching with like engineers and nurses and vets and things like that was similar to mine because there were a lot of engineers in the band as well. So
Hmm.
and I can understand where you would say that you were able to focus better while you were marching because your time, like it just takes the practices take so much of your time. So it's like you're forced to focus once you're stepping off that practice field, you got to go to the study group. Well, at least it was for me. I had to go
Hmm.
to the study group.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you really did, and you could see people, say similar majors, similar classes. We're on our way to a game, or we're on our way from a game. People are huddled up. They got their books. They're studying on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, even to this day, the band is very focused on studying. They have freshman study hall after every practice, and the people who are in the major with the freshmen all help them to get acclimated to the academic life of the university. So it's really interesting to see that things that we started, they have improved upon, and the students do a lot of what the staff do. I mean, if you can imagine, Miss Duncan and Mr. Leonard, they were a staff of one
Right.
for a college band. We had
Mm-hmm.
two when I was there, and Mr. Gibbs left, and he was never replaced. So,
Wow. Well, I know that you are a jazz head. That at least that's what I
oh yes,
associate with you.
oh yes, oh yeah,
Yeah. Did you
that is
do
correct.
did you do jazz band at Tuskegee?
Oddly enough, Christy, I didn't discover jazz until I was out of school. It is one of the regrets of my life is that I wasn't really into jazz when I was there. I was into R&B. I was into a little smooth jazz, a little David Sanborn, a little Grover Washington, but that's about all that it took. But I really didn't have an appreciation for John Coltrane or Miles Davis or any of the greats, and that came much much later in life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you finish your degree. And what engineering did you do? Which
Yeah,
engineering?
I'm an electrical engineer.
Okay, electrical. Okay. So you
Mhm.
get your EE degree and you march for 4 years?
5 years, for 5 years.
5 years? Okay, okay. All right.
Hmm.
So let's talk about some of the rivalries or some of the memorable games you performed in. Do any come
Okay.
to your mind?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So I always remember Alabama A&M. That was my first away games, fall of
Okay.
1977. Being a Florida boy, Huntsville was the coldest place I'd ever been. It was like tumbleweeds were on that campus when we came up there, and that was a
Mhm.
night game. And that's the first time we had actually battled against another band. Back in that day, it was a more civilized era. So the
Mhm.
only play you got to play during football play a lot more. They didn't enforce that much, but at the end
Yeah.
of the first quarter, each band would play a song. Nobody tried to play over each other. Or sometimes, if one band played at the end of the first quarter, they would let the other band play at the end of the third quarter. And so, but you did play a lot during the game itself, and there was no fifth quarter, so you play your school song and bounce. So it was very much different.
Yeah. So, you know what? I'm putting two and two together now. So you were in school in the late 70s at
Hmm.
Tuskegee with the
Hmm.
Commodores.
Yes,
So
yes. Yes, yes. In fact, when the first summer I went to Tuskegee, they were practicing in the cafeteria, and you could go down and hear the Commodores practice for their concert every day. The only stipulation was you had to be in there when they started, and you had to stay. You couldn't come in and out, and you had to stay until they finished. And I thought that was going to be an everyday occurrence, and I only went in there twice, but I could have literally heard the Commodores practice every day, and they were around town, and so it was. In fact, when a girl from my high school, I got her autograph from Lionel Richie. She said you couldn't tell me nothing when you sent me that autograph. So yeah, I was there. I was there during the time when they were actually living there. That was the first game for me. Second game was then the Turkey Day Classic that year, because now this is something on the scale of the Florida Classic that I was used to with the stands, and we were fired up. We brought the house down at the Turkey 1977 Turkey Day Classic. That
Mhm.
was another great game. Fall of '78, when I was pledging Kappa Kappa Psi, we went to FAMU's homecoming, and we turned it out. We were on fire. We were on fire that game. And then probably the most memorable game was fall of '79, first game of the year. We had to go into Mumford against Southern.
Oh boy.
That was the year Earth, Wind and Fire's All in All album was out, and we
Mm.
we were so proud. We had three songs from that album. We were gonna play a couple at halftime and one in the stands. And so we had a little set with my Kappa Kappa Psi brothers, and all the time they were playing music in the background. And they said, "We hope y'all not going to try to stay in the stands with us after the game, because we had been there for about an hour and it was playing." And they said, "Because this is all the music we've memorized so far." So that was the first time
Oh,
I had ever heard of a fifth quarter. And
really?
and so yeah, that was literally the first time that we had heard staying in the stadium afterwards, because that was something that Jackson and Southern used to do, and then it was kind of expanding to other bands. And so
Mm.
we had our little songs. Christy, they played almost the whole album before halftime. Them people never stopped playing.
Wow.
They turned they turned to us while we were playing across Mumford, and we just had to stop playing because I couldn't get a saxophone next to me. It was a
Wow.
very, very, very long day.
Oh man. Oh man. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I love hearing about these games that were
Mm,
played, 40 something years ago. I love this whole
mhm,
band history thing.
yeah.
So let's talk about Kappa Kappa Psi. So
Hmm.
there weren't a lot of HBCUs with KK Psi chapters when you pledged, right?
No, no, there wasn't. At the time in the Southeast District, Delta Iota was very active at FAMU. It was us, Certified Tuskegee, and then Alabama State were the only brothers that we had. I think Alabama A&M came along shortly after then, but yeah. In fact, I come from an era before the frat stepped, and so
Okay.
it was literally a service organization.
Hmm.
It was literally a service organization for the band. So the focus was very much on service to the band rather than what they do now. And
And
they do serve the band now, but they also put on some pretty great shows.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you. I hear you. So you completed your time at Tuskegee, you marched, for the time you did. And then what did you do when you first graduated? Like, what was your maybe first jobs after you graduated?
So I moved here to this area. That in itself is a whole different story. But I moved to
Okay,
this
so
area.
what's this area? Because people aren't.
Okay, that's right. That's right. I'm in the Washington D.C. area. So
Okay.
I moved to the Washington D.C. area because my wife is in grad school at University of Maryland, and I ended up getting a government job first down at Patuxent River and then in Northern Virginia in Arlington. So I worked for the Navy for about 20 years as a project engineer, primarily for sonar projects for the Navy. So I would manage sonar projects, and then the last 10 years of my career, I spent at the Commerce Department as a subject matter expert in acoustics and marine systems. And I
Wow,
spent a few
acoustics.
years.
Isn't that ironic?
Yes,
You're working in acoustics.
yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. And so many of the principles, as I was taking graduate work at Penn State in acoustics, I learned that by thinking about instruments.
Mhm.
Literally, I can, about how different horns vibrate, the axis of, how a saxophone radiates or clarinet radiates outwardly and inwardly to make the sound. I could visualize it by thinking about different instruments, and so
Mhm.
that was very helpful, sort of tying the science to the music that I love.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of lessons did you learn at Tuskegee, like mainly marching for the band, that you took on your future jobs?
One of them was leadership. I would say that the best lesson I learned how to work hard in the band. I learned how to adhere to standards. Iris, my squad leader, she was a tough woman, and
Mm.
she would not let up on me. She would. I could just hear her today say, "Close up, crab. Close up the rank, crab." And I was just crab. I was just, I didn't even have a crab name because I joined the
Right.
band so late. So I was just crab to her, and she would, if I played a wrong note, I got a side eye from her. If I wasn't dancing, because learning to play and dance was really hard for me. That was a tough thing.
Mhm.
But I really learned leadership in the band when I became section leader. So one of my buddies, we're marching, we're showing the freshmen how to do it, and he was slacking. And he's kind of going through the motions. And Mr. Duncan called me over. He said, "Look," he said, "if you're gonna be my section leader, you got to go over there and check your boy."
Mhm.
And so I had to go back and tighten up my boy and tighten up the section, because and I learned that those standards that I had been given from Iris and Greg, he expected me to carry those standards on. And so that's something that's always been with me.
Right.
Is those experiences, and just all of the service that we had to do for the band with the one director. I mean, we had to go line the fields. We had to go pass the music out. We had to make sure, so we became, in effect, almost like assistant band directors and section leaders because
Mhm.
of or as Kappa Kappa Psi, because he would always say service to the band first, and that was our official motto. Before you guys go off and do any of your fraternity stuff, have you done the service for the band? And so yeah, I think I think those are lessons that I learned, and of course I just have a love for bands, and then I discovered the fifth quarter, so
Yeah.
and then it was just on. So my daughter went to University of Maryland, and I kept telling her about bands back in the day, and she said, "Well, let's go see some games, Dad."
Mhm.
So then when I came down to Atlanta, when I came down to well, she didn't come then, but we went to see FAMU and Southern, and I think I remember I sending you a audio recording back in the day from
Yes.
from Miles playing Cut Friends. Man, they blew that on us. It was not very nice what Miles did to us
Oh
that
no.
day. Yeah. They
Yeah, I
kind of
forgot because they are in the same conference, the SIAC. Yeah,
hmm
okay. Okay.
hmm hmm So
Yeah.
so
So
yeah.
let's get into this book. So Darrell is one of the authors in the HBCU Experience, HBCU Band Alumni Edition, the second edition. And just to give a shout out to Dr. Ashley Little, who's the visionary author. She created the series, and I'm proud to be in it, and I'm glad that Darrell was able to take part of it. You'll be able to, by the time this airs, the book will be out. You'll be able to purchase it on Amazon, or you can purchase it on the HBCU Experience Movement website. And so, Darrell, why don't you, without spoiling anything, give a little bit of a teaser as to what your chapter is about? I'm so glad that Tuskegee is represented in this book.
Well, my chapter is called The Accidental Bandsman, and it just chronicles how I ended up getting from in the stands at the first game to actually on the field before the season was over, and all of the trials and tribulations, as the old folks would say, all of the things that I had to go through to be a member of the Crimson Pipers, and how that just sparked a lifelong love of music. So it is, it's a full chronicle to where I am now, as a member of the Fort Washington Symphonic Winds, which is a community band that I play in at Oxon Hill High School under Mr. Walter Harley, who's from Shaw University in Morgan, and we have a whole bunch of HBCU members there, and just a lifelong of just being a bandhead, So that was all sparked by seeing that one band on that field that one day, and I kind of tell my journey and tell my story, the story of my journey, and in my chapter in the book.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I've read it, and it's a very good chapter. And like I said, I'm glad you're able to rep for Tuskegee, because it was really important for me this time to get like a lot of different schools. So you're going to see a lot of schools that were not in the first edition. And let me just say, the first edition was great, but this is good too. So we have over 40 authors in this one. So, it's going to be a good read. Let's see what else. So you're retired now, and I know that you are always a musician and a band head, and I just really appreciate you. You have helped to expose me to jazz artists. Like, I remember you sent me like a Cassandra Wilson CD one time, and I like her, and I just really appreciate you. I want to just put that out there that
Thank you.
I've learned a lot from you, and
Thank you.
yeah. And so, just in closing, is there anything that is on your heart that you want to get across, or any kind of takeaways?
Sure. So being a bandhead right now, I'm mentoring a young man, a friend of mine's son, who wants to march in an unnamed SWAC band. I'm not gonna put the kid out there like that, but it is so funny. I've been trying to prepare him for his high school band camp. He's a rising senior, and he is down there right now catching it. I'm trying to show him his scales, and he's looking all crazy. And it's like, okay, you go get down there. You're gonna see when them kids from New Orleans and Memphis and Atlanta start showing up and they ripping them scales up and down. I'm like, okay, he about to get fire lit under. So we'll see if he can make the band, because about now he's probably saying, how hard can it be?
Right.
And he's learning. But I'm really excited that kids are still looking at bands like this, and he's chosen one of the premier bands to try to make. And so I wish him well, and I'm really pulling for him. And I already sent a letter down there to the frat and say, hey, make sure he's tight, make sure he knows. So yeah. So I am an advocate of kids going to school in band. Even bands that people don't like, it's a way to get them in school and life changing. So even bands that are kind of fish sandwichy, I don't care. It's like, get them in school, get them through school, so they can have so they can have a better life. So
Yeah.
so I'm all about that still.
All right. Well, you know what? This has been great chatting with you. And yeah, I've enjoyed it.
I have to, Christy, and I miss seeing you. You know, I've seen you at HBCU games. I've seen you at DCI games. You know,
Mhm.
I show up and still see fifth quarter people at Morgan games and Howard. So, you know, it really is a community of people that I've met, lifelong friends, and people that I know. I've been enriched through what you and Mike did in the fifth quarter. And I just really want to end by saying that was, you know, so wonderful for the technology of the day. What you guys did was just, even to get an old guy like me interested in band again and get me just totally hype about band. And I could, you know, so kudos to you, and kudos to you for keeping up with it.
Well, thank you, friend.
You have listened to the HBCU Band Experience with Christy Walker. Interviews and editing conducted by yours truly, Dr. Christy Walker. The music is District 4 by Kevin MacLeod, and you can find this podcast on hbcubandexperience.podbean.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Take care.